scenic train ride through southwest Colorado when suddenly you see...
It's an elusive creature.
Wait, is...
From having logs hurled at the camera to angry Sasquatch accosting loggers, these rare sightings will shock you. Up first, a face-to-face sighting. A massive Sasquatch came across a hunting blind and almost destroyed the hunters within. After days of luckless tracking, these hunters settled down near a wallow they believed was used by elk, but ended up with far more than they bargained for. The hunters initially believed the furry mass they saw approaching to be an elk and were excited to be able to get a large bull. However, when they finally got a better look at their quarry, the paralyzing face of a Sasquatch peered back at them through the woods, freezing them in place, until the Sasquatch finally and slowly retreated. In truth, both sides of this encounter were walking on a knife's edge, with either able to end the other in a moment. Just be glad this tense situation cooled off after the Sasquatch moved off into the forest. Next is the Freeman film. The Freeman film, recorded in 1994, was a pivotal piece of evidence and shows a large Sasquatch walking through the woods. We get a unique opportunity to examine the lumbering gait of a Sasquatch, as well as being able to see its large size. Paul Freeman had been a passionate Sasquatch hunter for over a decade at this point, and had provided some of the most important Sasquatch evidence ever at the time, which included plaster casts of footprints and tracks, which have since been used in research and studies. This film ended up being the nail in the coffin, however, and convinced a lot of people that it was legitimate proof of Sasquatch. Next is a terrifying warning. Wild encounters can get hairy, especially when dealing with Sasquatch. Some people are lucky enough to get away with a chilling stare and a lifetime of stress, but these hunters were truly on the receiving end of the wrath of a Sasquatch. The Sasquatch can smell the hunters and begins acting aggressively to scare them off, initially just hollering and whooping, but then escalates to smashing a log on a tree, and even then hurls the remains of that log at the bowblind. This is a terrifying encounter and thankfully didn't escalate any farther. Still, this goes to show just how incredibly dangerous and powerful these woodland creatures are, and how at risk anyone in the woods encountering one is. Next is the log hurler. Sasquatch are intimidating and physically impressive creatures that can react with aggression and anger when their territory and habitat is encroached upon. Here we see a Sasquatch lingering on the edge of a clear cut where loggers are breaking down the forest. We watch as it finds a large log, which was likely several hundred pounds, and hurls it into the camp. This is an example not only of the incredible power and physical strength of the Sasquatch, but also one of their preferred methods of defense and aggression: throwing things. Much like humans, it seems that Sasquatch are adept throwers, though likely they trade off some of the elasticity and range of motion that we have for the extra muscular strength that's shown here. After all, I don't know anyone, aside from some Scots, who could hurl a log like this. Next is the marching monster. Modern technology makes it easier than ever to discover and record new footage of Sasquatch and Bigfoot. This particular recording was taken by a local woodsman who had been having strange encounters and sightings in the woods around his home. So he pulled out his trusted quadcopter and began to overfly the forest, hoping to get some footage. The footage he would record is some of the clearest ever taken of a Sasquatch walking. Most sightings involve stationary or slow-moving Sasquatch, but seeing this footage gives us an idea of the speed and stride length of a full-grown Sasquatch on the move. Its reddish fur is also a common sighting feature for North American Sasquatch. Next are riverside tracks. This footage, taken in northern Maine using a drone, had initially just been a fisherman who wanted to check the river for potential fishing spots. However, while tracking down the riverbank, the camera very briefly catches a large furred figure walking down the trail. The drone does try to reposition and recapture the figure, but it seems the Sasquatch has been warned by the whine of rotors and manages to quickly vanish into the woods. It's actually uncanny to see just how quickly the Sasquatch manages to blend into its surroundings and disappear from view. These creatures are incredibly shy and intelligent and have learned to stay hidden to survive, ever since the great Sasquatch hunts of the 1700s and 1800s. And finally, the Sasquatch of Wasatch. This footage shows a massive 8 to 9 foot tall creature, allegedly a Sasquatch, marching through the deep snow of the peak of Mount Wasatch. The speed with which it traverses this very deep snow, along with its apparent size, have made it clear to many researchers and skeptics that this must be a Sasquatch. What other creatures could handle deep powder so easily or be so large and furry? On a steep, powder-covered mountain like this, it is incredibly difficult to walk and move even for other animals like elk or deer. But the Sasquatch, with its large, splayed-out feet and long legs, is significantly better adapted to moving through deep snow than most other animals. What do you think of this footage? Up first is the Patterson-Gimlin footage. Roger Patterson and Roger Gimlin were hiking alongside Bluff Creek in an effort to discover evidence of a Sasquatch. It was as they were crossing this creek when they actually spotted the hominid walking through the clearing in the distance. Struggling to get the camera up in time, they did manage to capture some of the most compelling footage in history. This was the very first time a Sasquatch was ever recorded and has been often hailed as the piece of evidence that brought Sasquatch to the mainstream. Next is the 4th of July sighting. This sighting was made on 4th of July several years ago, and we all know that pets can suffer from the loud bangs of fireworks, but it turns out so too can Sasquatch. Allegedly, the person recording saw movement in the bushes when the fireworks began and stumbled over to record this footage. It seems to show a mother Sasquatch investigating the area before fleeing for safety with her offspring. It's likely that Sasquatch are especially skittish, which is how they've stayed on the fringes of society and understanding for so long. Next is the Jacobs photos. These images are some of the most irrefutable ever found. Initially, when they were recorded, it was thought that this was some bear with mange. However, many have investigated these images in depth, including overlaying them over other images of known bears at the site, and the dimensions simply do not match up. Many believe this to be much closer to some sort of juvenile ape, judging by its proportions and movement. However, no sightings of this creature have been made since, though it has encouraged a new generation of investigators. Even if this is not a Sasquatch, the question of what it is still fascinating, because I highly doubt there's a secret population of bonobos in Pennsylvania. Next is Highcliffe's skunk ape. Josh Highcliffe had a patch of land a few miles outside of Tunica that he loved to hunt hogs on. Hogs are pretty devastating animals, so hunting them is more of a matter of pest control in many southern states. So Highcliffe went out before the sun rose, settled into a spot to wait for the pigs, and then, well, waited. Just after the sun rose, he heard some rustling and turned to look, hoping to spot a juicy hog. Instead, he saw something straight out of his nightmares. A massive swamp ape had trundled up, unaware of his presence, and was now in the process of ripping apart an entire tree trunk to get at the grubs inside. Paralyzed by fear initially, Highcliffe ran for his life the moment that he could. Next is the Idaho Bigfoot. Idaho is a rugged land of hills, fields, and mountains, and is considered to be some of the last homes of Sasquatch in North America. This footage was taken by a drone surveying this farmer's property when they spotted a large humanoid figure moving at speed towards the woods. Once into the trees, the creature vanishes, but we do get enough of a glimpse to guess that this creature may be as much as 9 feet tall. It's believed that drone sightings will only become more common, as the Sasquatch cannot hear the drone as long as it's high enough in the sky, allowing for greater observation of their natural habits. Next is the Banff Beast. This footage was recorded on the edge of the protected Banff National Park within the huntable zone. These men were out with the intention of picking up a nice buck or elk when they came across this terrifying sight. There are remains of prey hanging from the boughs of what can only be assumed to be a shelter, but even more terrifyingly, behind the shelter, we catch a glimpse of a large ape-like creature. The fur blends in exceptionally well with the snow and foliage and makes the creature difficult to pick out. However, many are confident this is in fact a Sasquatch. And finally, the Lettuce Lake legend. This is perhaps the most compelling piece of Sasquatch evidence ever recorded. Other sightings give good insight and have clear images, but nothing is as seemingly genuine as this. Matt M. had been paddling through the Lettuce Lake when he spotted something disturbing in the distance. A large furry creature was seen diving and swimming before it spots him and submerges, swimming to safety. Now, how could this be believable? Well, first off, this wouldn't be a bear, as bears hardly ever venture into the swamp, as confirmed by several wildlife rangers. Second, this creature is swimming in muggy swamp water filled with gators, boas, and water moccasins. Do you know of any person that would willingly suit up in a hot, heavy, head-to-toe fursuit and then dive headfirst into a stagnant swamp filled with venomous snakes? Yeah, neither do I. Though I suppose the counter-argument would be that people will do a whole heck of a lot for just a little taste of fame. Those were famous Bigfoot sightings that defy explanation. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. It's about strange anomalies that were found in the Amazon rainforest. We have delved deep into the mysteries of the jungle to see what we could find, and the answers might shock you. What are you waiting for? Click the video now to find out more.